And the way Nick Patrick took this fucking bump was tremendous. But he took like 5 minutes to fall. And he's like waving his arm all over dramatically. He's like, oh. Conan all of a sudden sunk deeper into his Mexicanness. Starts talking about his Tio Chewy and his Aunt Marta's fish tacos that were allegedly being sold in the parking lot.
When Jericho's hair was getting pulled out, someone said, "Oh, could I have some? That's some sus ass shit. What are you saying that for?" I like the undertone. Stevie Ray's recently told Booker he needs to go back to his street mentality.
Oh, yeah. He ain't black enough.
Yeah, he's turning white without saying it.
And Mr. Perfect comes out with a Goldberg shirt that says, "Who's next?" And he reveals the bottom half of the shirt and it says, "Goldberg. Checkmate."
Got it. Like every bump he took, every time he walked around, check that bandana. He's taking body slams and headbutts. Everything stayed on the whole match.
I think there was a point he tagged out just so he could fix it.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Let's talk about WCW Bash at the Beach, 1998 to be exact. It starts off with the standard video. It's all about the main event. And there's like one or two glimpses of Goldberg, the world heavyweight champion, by the way.
How fast time moves, because he was just United States champion and now he's already world champion.
And he's
within a pay-per-view.
He's 110-0. But the main event is Hollywood Hogan and Dennis Rodman versus DDP and Karl Malone. So that'll be fun to watch. We are in San Diego, California. Mike Tenay, Tony Schiavone, and Bobby the Brain Heenan are on commentary. And yep, it's all about the main event. Apparently the media, nay, the entire world, is very interested in seeing Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman have a fake fight. A Goldberg chant breaks out while they discuss the preliminaries. They tell us that Hogan has recently lost to Goldberg, therefore losing the World Heavyweight Championship. And then they kick it to Mean Gene, who hypes up the Goldberg versus Mr. Perfect match. And then the son of a bitch goes back to pimping the hotline. And the only incentive he gave us was to listen to him and or Mike Tenay recap, I'm assuming, this fucking pay-per-view or a Nitro or a Thunder or something.
I gotta be honest with you, I don't know what he said.
There's no like mystery man, no, oh, this backstage news shit, nothing. Just, hey, you want to rap with some old guys?
Yeah, he said some big word and I was lost.
That brings us to Saturn versus Raven. And Raven comes out with Riggs and Lodi. And of course, this is a Raven's rules match. And apparently WCW told Raven he's no longer special and gave him generic WCW theme music with Raven cause. Ka! Ka!
Yeah, if they just had the cause, I would have liked it. Like no music and just the Ravens.
Yeah, I could see that.
But yeah, no more silent theme for him.
Well, Saturn doesn't even let Raven get to the ring before fighting him on the floor. Basically just throws him into the guardrail a bunch of times. So they get back in the ring. Saturn slips off the turnbuckle and turns it into something instead of just busting on his ass. He turned it into a clothesline or something. Saturn does a drop toe hold into an ankle lock, which is a really cool move. He tosses Raven with a gut wrench suplex, then misses a leg drop from the top rope. Raven, smelling blood, rolls to the floor, sets up a table. Riggs had to help. And then Raven did a Russian leg sweep to Saturn on the guardrail. A fan starts patting a convulsing Saturn on the shoulder, and Saturn just kind of slithers further down to the ground out of the fan's reach. For the record, the fan looked like he was the type to rub one off and not wash his hands, so I don't blame Saturn at all. So Raven rolls Saturn into the ring, goes for a pin, then puts his feet on the ropes, and Saturn kicks out, but Nick Patrick starts yelling at Raven for having his feet on the ropes, and apparently that's not allowed in a Ravens rules match.
The no DQ Ravens rules match.
Yes. So Saturn counters out of a sleeper hold, goes on the offensive with kicks and suplexes. Then he rolls out of the ring, grabs a chair, beats Raven with it. He covers Raven's face with the chair and hits him with a springboard leg drop. He sets the chair up for one of his springboard moves, and then Lodi and Riggs attack Saturn from behind. And Saturn suplexes both of them. He goes to hit Raven with a springboard dropkick from the chair, but he hits Nick Patrick instead. And the way Nick Patrick took this fucking bump was tremendous. First of all, he took like 5 minutes to fall. And he's like waving his arm all over dramatically. He's like, oh! And then he falls and he convulses in such a way that he rolls over onto his stomach. And he's just like holding his face. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So Raven rolls to the floor. Saturn snatches him up and delivers a bulldog right onto the point of the steel steps. And he sets up a second table and lays Raven on it. Then he stacks the first table on top of Raven. And then he goes for the top rope. Canyon comes out of nowhere, pulls Raven off the table. Saturn stands up, looks at the table without Raven on it, and then delivers an elbow drop to 2 tables for no reason at all.
I was thinking about it. Maybe because he had the sandwich thing going on. Maybe he didn't see that Raven wasn't there anymore.
Maybe, but I don't know. I would think with that angle, you'd still be able to see at least his leg dangling. I don't know. I would make
That
damn sure that whatever I'm trying to dive on is there, especially if I have time to look. And you see Canyon standing there. What does Canyon do? You're not going to investigate that first?
I don't know.
Well, it doesn't matter because Canyon holds up Raven's arm like he won the match or something, and then he just delivers a flatliner on the chair. So Riggs rolls Saturn in the ring. Lodi rolls Raven on top of Saturn for the pin attempt, but Saturn kicks out. Well, Raven hits a drop toe hold on the chair for the first time out of a million attempts. Saturn super kicked a chair into Raven's face, goes for the cover. Riggs stops the pin. Saturn hits Riggs with a Death Valley driver. Raven catches Saturn with the even flow DDT 1, 2, 3.
And he finally beats Saturn.
I was confused that he won the match after getting a flatliner on a chair.
There's a lot of things that
That's fair.
It's like, oh, that wasn't the finish. For instance, when Saturn went through the tables, I thought that was going to be it.
True.
Well, he didn't even go through the tables, to be honest. He bounced right off of it.
Yeah, he may have gone through the first one.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, Canyon even flowed Raven on the chair, so that kind of nullified what Saturn did. I guess I'm surprised that Raven recovered so quickly to win the match, because he basically hit the even flow right after.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
It was a good match, though.
Mm-hmm.
So they kick it to Mean Gene again. He says he got so drunk last night that they carried him home like Raven is being carried out now. Then he brings out Eddie Guerrero. Eddie is having a hair versus hair match with his nephew Chavo. And Chavo is facing Stevie Ray first. I think Eddie said he thought Chavo was fucked in the head before, but then he challenged Stevie Ray to a match before his match with Eddie. So that just means he's super fucked in the head. So all Eddie has to do is pick the bones after Stevie's done, and then cut his hair. And shave his head.
Yeah.
But first, we have Kidman versus Juventud Guerrera. That's Billy Kidman. And Kidman has theme music too. It's worse than Raven's. A lot worse. Hoovy comes out with a mouthful of water and does 2 spit poses with it, which I thought was really interesting. That's a lot of discipline to not spit it all out at once. So it starts off pretty evenly matched until Hoovy hits a head scissors. Then he dumps Kidman out of the ring, goes for a suicide dive, but Lodi pulls Hoovy out of the ring and starts beating the shit out of him. Ref sees what happens and does nothing. So Shivani says, well, I guess this is Raven's rules too. And Kidman does a diving crossbody to Hoovy while Lodi holds his arms. And of course, Hoovy sidesteps and Kidman takes out Lodi. Then Hoovy jumps on both of them. And Kidman catches Hoovy with a modified German suplex, tosses him back out of the ring. He does a guillotine thing from a powerbomb position onto the guardrail, which was really cool. Hoovy ultimately recovers, slams Kidman on the concrete with a sunset flip powerbomb from the apron. He sets Kidman up for a Frankensteiner from the top rope. Kidman fights out, hits a sit-down spine buster from the top rope instead. You can see Kidman grab his ass in pain, which I thought was hilarious. And they go back and forth some more. Kidman ends up getting crotched on the ropes. Hoovy hits a springboard Frankensteiner for a near fall. Then he tries a few more pin attempts. Kidman hits a tornado bulldog. And Hoovy still fights back, hits Kidman with a Hoovy driver, goes back on the attack. Kidman hits it with a spine buster, goes for the shooting star press. Hoovy moves out of the way at the last minute, then hits his 450 splash 1, 2, 3. I didn't find this as offensive as the Reese match last pay-per-view, but this was still just as useless to me.
Yeah, I wish I would have known more of the story, but it was a filler. They just wanted to get him on the show, I guess.
Well, I guess if we think about the logical conclusion to this, is Hoovy working his way up to Raven?
I guess now he is.
Do we want to see Hoovy working his way up to Raven?
No.
Okay. Well, we go to the internet location. Tony the Tiger is sitting with Conan and totally sucking him off, saying how everybody wants to be like him and how they can't hang with him. And Conan compares it to a lowrider with hydraulics, then mentions some sort of party. Then he asks Tony the Tiger about his shirt. Tony says he got it someplace that Conan should know about, I guess. And Conan all of a sudden sunk deeper into his Mexicanness, starts talking about his Tio Chewy and his Aunt Marta's fish tacos that were allegedly being sold in the parking lot. Yeah, that's all Conan had to say.
Good for him.
Stevie Ray versus Chavo Guerrero Jr. Stevie Ray comes out just wanting to whoop some tiny Latino ass. I'm surprised he even got dressed for the match. Chavo comes out wearing a flotation device and carrying a super soaker. Eddie comes out later, stalking out of the entranceway carrying a pair of scissors as soon as the bell rings. And Chavo stops everything, grabs a microphone, says, "I dedicate this match to my favorite wrestler, Eddie Guerrero. This is for you, little trooper." So they go to lock up. Chavo ducks out of the way and challenges Stevie Ray to a dance-off. Stevie didn't even pretend to entertain the idea. Then Chavo goes in for a handshake. Stevie Ray accepts. Chavo just starts screaming at the top of his lungs. Stevie screams at Chavo to let him go. And then the ref separates the two, then rings the bell and declares Stevie Ray the winner by submission. Stevie Ray was not content with winning the match at all. The ref had to hold him back from beating Chavo's ass. And Chavo gets the mic, says that was for Uncle Eddie, and he reckons that they're going to have their match now.
Smart move by Chavo.
Not really, because he could have just not challenged Stevie Ray at all.
Well, I took it as him outsmarting Eddie.
Okay.
Or trying to. Because, like, he's going to wear you out, and then I'm going to have easy pickings.
Well, I understand that, but Chavo issued the challenge in the first place. Chavo challenged Stevie Ray to a match before his match with Eddie Guerrero. So Chavo's grand scheme was to challenge Stevie Ray before his match with his uncle and to somehow get Stevie in a handshake position to submit. When the easiest route to all of this would have just been not to challenge Stevie Ray.
Again, unless maybe Eddie agreed to the hair versus hair stipulation after he found out that Chavo had the first match.
Okay, that could be. We don't know the story as far as what they've been telling us on Nitro, but from what they told me, Chavo Guerrero challenged this man to a match and then submitted as some grand scheme. Don't challenge, because now he's got a pissed off big ass black guy gonna hunt him down later.
I don't know. That's just what I thought it was. Is like, oh, a grand scheme to sucker in Eddie.
And Stevie Ray has a brother, so you know he's gonna bring him in on it. So you got two guys pissed off at you for no reason when you could have just said nothing and just had your hair versus hair match.
Fair enough.
So yeah, Chavo Guerrero Jr. versus Eddie Guerrero. And despite Eddie's protest and dismay, the bell rings. Chavo fresh as a daisy. And Chavo wraps his arms around Eddie's waist from behind and starts to bite his ass. Literally. Then they lock up again. Chavo wants to have a dance off. Eddie throws a fit and kicks the ropes. And he hurts his foot and grabs a hold of it and starts dancing like Chavo did. And Chavo gets into it. He's like, yeah, you want to play along? And that pisses off Eddie even more. So Eddie goes to the floor, slides a chair in the ring. Chavo just picks it up and sits on it. Eddie tries to go in for a handshake. And Chavo takes Eddie's hand and hits him with a short arm clothesline. He tosses Eddie. Eddie runs on his knees to the ref. Chavo runs on his knees and bites Eddie in the ass again. Then forward rolls away and celebrates. He gets a pop from the ass biting. I don't understand it. And then Heenan says, "That hurts. Have you ever been bit in the buttocks?" And Shivani laughs and says, "No, I have not. I guess you have." And Heenan says, "You're kidding." Shivani says, "No, I'm not kidding. I don't even want to go even further into this. Let's just go back to the match." Heenan says, "I'm sure you have. Have you ever bitten anyone?" And Shivani's like, "No, shut up." And then he's like, "This is pay-per-view, Shivani. Speak your truth." It's a nice little interaction. Meanwhile, Eddie starts beating the shit out of Chavo. He locks in a gory special. Chavo fights out of it and immediately gets decked by a clothesline. Chavo hits Eddie with a head scissors, starts firing back up, hits a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker after forward rolling off the top rope. And Eddie dumps Chavo on the floor, pulls the protective mat off the concrete, goes for a suplex, but it's reversed. They get back in the ring. Chavo goes for a top rope move. Eddie ends up crotching him and hits a superplex. And Eddie gets Chavo in the corner, goes for a running attack. Chavo launches Eddie into the turnbuckles and hits a scoop slam. Chavo goes for a frog splash. Eddie gets his knees up and Chavo's all fucked up. So Eddie hits Chavo with a tornado DDT and then just tries to cut Chavo's hair with a pair of scissors for no reason. The ref had to get involved to stop him. Then Eddie just simply goes for a frog splash. Of course, Chavo moves out of the way. Then Shivani states that Eddie made a critical mistake going for the scissors. No shit. Chavo hits Eddie with a tornado DDT. Then he grabs the scissors and tries to cut Eddie's hair instead of just simply winning the match. The ref stops Chavo, of course. Eddie snatches Chavo, locks in the small package, 1, 2, 3. After the match, the ref takes the scissors away from Chavo and hands Eddie the pair of clippers. The ref sets up a chair for Chavo to sit in. Chavo kind of throws a fit and snatches the clippers away from Eddie, threatening to cut his hair. And then Chavo just starts buzzing his own hair off, making noises like, woo! Come on, Eddie! Woo! And this scared Eddie for some reason, so he left the ring. Then Chavo sits in the chair, tries to buzz his hair off and his armpit hair, and he's squirting himself in the mouth with the super soaker. Finally, after a long ass time, Chavo mostly buzzes all his hair off and then starts celebrating. To be fair, it's really hard to buzz your hair when it's all sweaty.
Yeah, and he said something about he has too much gel in his hair. But it did start catching at the end there. I don't know. I didn't really like the match. It felt a little bit too hokey.
They were doing a little bit too much.
Yeah, it felt like they were performing in a circus or something. Like if you're going to a circus and watch wrestling, you're like they're really like each move is pandering to the crowd. Like you can tell they're just putting on a show.
Yeah. Well, that seems to be lucha in general.
Yeah, they weren't really lucha. But like the last match, it wasn't as lucha.
Well, that's because Chavo hadn't completely snapped.
Okay. But yeah, I didn't like it as much. Thought it was a little too comedy.
I don't like it when somebody pretends to be crazy. It's performative and it's not authentic
And there's that too. Yeah, I don't believe Chavo's crazy.
at all. I believe he's pretending to be crazy. Well, after that, we find out that Dean Malenko's been suspended by WCW. He was supposed to face Chris Jericho tonight for the Cruiserweight title. A no contact stipulation was agreed upon by both Jericho and Malenko. Jericho presumably pushed Malenko's buttons to the point where Malenko whooped his ass and therefore forfeited the match and got himself suspended. Jericho isn't scot-free, though, because he will be out later.
Yeah, he said he was going out there to entertain the crowd.
But first, Disco Inferno coming out with Alex Wright, his tag team partner, giving future inspiration to Pretty Deadly, versus Conan, who's coming out with Lex Luger and Kevin Nash. This is a special added contest. Before the match, Disco grabs the mic and says he and Wright are both very familiar with the South Hispanic scene. And they both shout Conan's catchphrases very poorly. Like, Orale! Viva la raza! You can imagine what a German Alex Wright saying Mexican catchphrases sounds like. Disco says, now I don't know what the hell any of that means, but probably means everybody came to see him and Alex Wright dance. So hit our music. So naturally, the Wolfpack theme plays. And nobody's happier to be part of the Wolfpack than Conan. He's dancing and hopping and posing. Luger and Nash, they've been there before, so they just casually walk out. But Conan's on fucking cloud 9. Nash grabs the mic. West Coast right in! Wolfpack most definitely in the house. One thing we gotta say now, a lot of people say we ain't nothing but a bunch of players. We ain't players. We just crush it loud.
It's a reference to Big Pun.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with Big Pun's catalog. So Conan grabs the mic. Yo, let me speak on you. Califas está mi casa. Now let me speak on this. Olale! Aviva la raza! The Wolfpack and Sandog is rowdy and batty. Sandog is their cute little nickname for San Diego, apparently. And then Conan beats the fuck out of Disco. He hits a forward roll clothesline, goes for a cradle DDT. Disco fights out, dumps Conan onto the floor. Alex Wright beats the fuck out of Conan. Conan didn't sell it one bit. And then he throws Conan back in the ring. Luger ends up snatching Wright up for a torture rack. This distracts the ref, who starts yelling at the two men on the floor who aren't even in the match. Nash hits Disco with a jackknife behind the ref's back, making sure to keep his stupid sunglasses on. Conan locks in the Tequila Sunrise. Disco submits. And Luger has Wright still in the torture rack, and he's just spinning him on the floor. If they kept up with kayfabe, Wright would be out for months because Arn Anderson and Savage were both severely fucked up after prolonged torture rack experiences.
I'm sure he will be. It's not because of the kayfabers and just because, they're really needed.
Oh boy. The Giant versus Kevin Green. This is a special challenge match. It starts off with Green avoiding contact with football moves. Then he ducks clotheslines and lightly slaps Giant in the face. Green ducks another clothesline attempt and lightly charges into the Giant and runs to the floor. Giant gives chase, and then Green gets in the ring and then kicks the ropes in the Giant's dick when he follows him back into the ring. Green tries to do the 10 punches. Giant just picks Green up and slams him to the mat. Giant beats up Green with slow, safe moves. A Goldberg chant breaks out. There was a few of those. Green fights back, gets Giant out of the ring, starts throwing him into shit. They get back in the ring. Green hits Giant with a top rope clothesline. Green celebrated, then did a dog pile dive to do the pin attempt, which I thought was funny. Overzealous motherfucker. And Green starts kicking Giant's legs, gets him in the corner. Green goes for a 3-point stance, something. Giant just catches him by the throat, hits a choke slam, 1, 2, 3. And I appreciate that Green is willing to come in and lose.
Yeah, seemingly that's what he was there for. My takeaway is that they're building Goldberg versus the Giant. Because, yeah, they started talking a lot about how the Giant had been undefeated for a while there. Biggest takeaway that they said is he was 26 at the time.
Yeah, it was crazy. He looked like he was 40.
Yeah, that was a jarring number.
Well, it's worth noting that this will be the last time we see Kevin Green in WCW.
Good.
Damn. We go back to the internet position. Tony the Tiger is talking to Mr. Perfect about his match with Goldberg later. Perfect says he issued a challenge to Goldberg long before he was champion because he knows the secret to beating him. And Tony's like, well, what is it? Perfect says 17 years experience, knowing the ring inside and out, and knowing when, how, and where to do things. I have experience. Goldberg doesn't. And Goldberg's got no cardio. So we'll see. We'll see if Perfect has the chops to beat Goldberg. Yeah. Then they show us what happened to get Malenko suspended. We're at Monday Nitro. Jericho comes out with a microphone, tells Malenko that now's the time for him to finally come down and face Jericho man-to-man. And then we learn that Malenko is currently in the middle of a match with Booker T. And Booker T ends up winning, and Jericho laughed about it. Cuts to J.J. Dillon, keeping Malenko from tearing Jericho's head off. Dillon reminds us that if Jericho and Malenko lay hands on each other before the Bash at the Beach, their title match is off. Then Jericho insinuates Malenko's parents got lonely and fucked other people. That's why Malenko and his brother look different. Well, naturally, Malenko just beats the shit out of Jericho. He's pulled off by a bunch of security. It's actually nice to see security have a function instead of be glorified crash dummies. Mm-hmm. Later, we see Jericho wrestling Ultimo Dragon. Malenko crashes that match, and he beats the shit out of Jericho again. Actually pulls Jericho's hair out, and they get pulled apart by security again. And I assume Malenko's suspension was later announced.
I didn't pick up who said it, but someone said some sus-ass shit. When Jericho's hair was getting pulled out, someone said, oh, could I have some? One of the commentators said that. That's some sus-ass shit. What are you saying that for? There's a couple scenarios, and none of them are good.
Well, Chris Jericho comes out wearing a top hat, and he's carrying a cane. He says Malenko went and got himself suspended and robbed the good fans of seeing a match tonight. Well, he's the better man, and he's a man of his word as well. So he came out to do a soft shoe routine for the good folks of San Diego, California, since he's all dressed up for it. He starts a soft shoe routine, and J.J. Dillon interrupts. Dillon says he came out to admit that maybe he made a mistake and misjudged Jericho. And if that's true, Dillon wanted to come out first and publicly say he was wrong and apologize. Dillon says, I have to say I'm surprised by the number of fans you have. But I feel a lot of those fans came here tonight, and there's disappointment because they wanted to see Chris Jericho defend his belt. Jericho says, well, that's Malenko's fault. What can you do? Well, Dillon says, I know I didn't get a chance to run it by you earlier, but I wanted to see if maybe there was somebody locally that we can bring in. And there was one guy that would come down on short notice. Jericho's like, oh, some local guy? I was like, yeah, he hasn't wrestled in 6 months. Well, Jericho gets all excited and he's like, yeah, this is a local jobber. Bring him on down here. I'll give him a little wrestling lesson. But it's got to be a no disqualification match. Dillon's like, are you sure? I mean, don't you think that's a little bit much? It's just a local guy. No. I got to show this young whippersnapper what's what. So out comes Rey Mysterio Jr. And he looks like he's put on some muscle. He also looks like a Xavier Woods from all the tanning he's done.
Yeah, he was pretty dark.
Very dark. I thought it was somebody else. Rey starts off hot, sends Jericho into the guardrail with head scissors. Jericho chop blocks Rey's leg that happens to have a knee brace on it and takes control. Jericho misses a corner attempt, crashes into the steel ring post, then teases leaving the match. Mysterio gives chase. They fight in the stage area where there's a lifeguard stand. Jericho starts climbing on top of it, and Mysterio just pulls Jericho off the lifeguard stand onto a sand pyramid. Giovanni says, yeah, that's a soft landing, but you know how irritating sand can be. So it's like Raven and DDP when Raven hit him with the hay. Like, oh, that could get in your eyes.
Yeah.
Little Giovanni. So they work their way back to the ring. Jericho hits Ray with a power slam from the top rope. Then goes to the floor, grabs a chair, starts working over Ray's injured leg. Ray gets the chair, starts beating on Jericho with it. And hits Jericho with a face buster. He goes for a springboard Frankensteiner. Jericho catches him and goes for the lion tamer. Ray fights all the way to the ropes, and that breaks whatever hold he was going for in a no disqualification match. So Malenko comes out after that. He debuts a new shirt, and Jericho goes for the lion tamer again. Ray catches Jericho with a roll up, 1, 2, 3. And after the match, Malenko chases Jericho away. Arn Anderson's in the back, and he catches Jericho and holds on to him long enough for Malenko to catch up with him. And Malenko beats the shit out of Jericho in the back, presumably, because they kind of cut away from that. And Mysterio celebrates in the ring as the new Cruiserweight champion.
Welcome back, Ray. Now, the crowd didn't react too much to it, but...
They reacted to him coming out, not so much him winning.
Yeah, and he put it over as, it's in his hometown, which it was, but I don't know. He didn't get as much of a reaction as you would think.
Yeah. Bret Hart versus Booker T. This is for the World TV title. And Hart comes out all bad. He's like, yeah, I'm bad. Making bad faces and saying shit to the crowd. And Booker T comes to the ring, and he hands the belt to the ref. Bret snatches the belt from the ref and just sneers at it. He's like, what the fuck am I doing here? This is the main event of a WrestleMania. So it starts off with a little shove from Booker. Bret looks at the camera and says, well, so much for Mr. Nice Guy. So then he proceeds to get outclassed by Booker. They fight out to the floor. Bret guillotines Booker on the guardrail and starts working over his leg, ultimately setting him up for the sharpshooter. Booker catches Bret with a spine buster. They fight on the floor again. Bret posts Booker on the steel ring post, his spine. They get back in the ring. Bret hits Booker with an elbow from the middle rope. Then gets pissed when Booker kicks out from the pin attempt. Booker catches Bret with a spin kick, then an axe kick. He hits a flapjack, then does the spin-a-rooney. He hits Bret with a missile drop kick. Bret rolls out of the ring, grabs a chair. Booker tries to hit Bret with a diving crossbody. Bret whacks Booker with the chair on the way down. Ref calls for the disqualification. After the match, Bret beats the fuck out of Booker with the chair, then does the figure 4 leg lock around the ring post. Ref told Bret to let go, and Bret just gave him the finger. And finally, after a long ass time, Stevie Ray just calmly walks out, chases Bret off with his aura. He just has like an inconvenienced look on his face, like, gotta come out here. Booker's rolling around, screaming in pain. Stevie Ray bends over and just lectures him, like, I told you this would happen. And he waves off the doctors trying to tend to Booker T. He's like, I got this. Don't you tell me what to do with my brother.
Yeah, like I said, it's my brother. I know how to take care of him.
So then he grabs Booker by the arm and starts basically dragging him on his bad leg. And Booker's like, oh, hold on. He calls for a referee who takes his other arm and drapes it over his shoulder. And like, that's what Stevie Ray should be doing. And Stevie just looks disgusted, like,
Yeah, couldn't be bothered.
So it looks like Harlem Heat's splitting up.
Yeah. I like the undertone that they're using for the split, too. Stevie Ray's recently told Booker he needs to go back to his street mentality.
Oh, yeah.
So basically he's saying he's turning...
He ain't black enough.
Yeah, he's turning white.
Yeah.
Without saying it.
Fucking all them white bitches.
You getting adulations from all them white people? You remember Sturgis? Remember Hog Wild? Steiner Brothers?
Well, the unfortunate part is that when they break apart, that means Ahmed Johnson's going to be Stevie Ray's new tag team partner, and that wasn't fun from what I remember.
He let himself go.
He sure did.
He's like, oh, you want to pay me? I'll come back. Now, as far as the match, just off of memory, I didn't remember that Bret Hart was in the NWO. But I think I was out.
He was in NWO last pay-per-view.
Was he, though?
Yeah.
He was tag team partners with Hulk Hogan, but they didn't officially, unless I missed it.
He was trying to recruit Benoit in the NWO. That's why he interfered with the match between him and whoever the fuck he was wrestling.
Maybe it's because he doesn't wear the shirt.
Yeah, he can't be fucked with that. He wears pink, too.
Yeah. And I also think it's funny that, he's Hollywood NWO, so he's basically under Hulk Hogan, and he has to pretend to be friends with Hulk Hogan.
He's under Hulk Hogan's team. He helped Hulk Hogan win the title belt, which I'm sure was the greatest day of Bret's life.
Yeah. Not this again.
It would have been funny if they brought on Yokozuna or something. I don't know if he's still alive around this time.
Yeah.
We're going to bring in this Samoan guy. You're going to wrestle him. You're going to lose. And then Hulk Hogan's going to save you.
Yeah, that night.
This sounds familiar.
No, it's original.
Well, they play a video. Hulk Hogan is saying a match will never happen. And that's a match with Goldberg. He says he has a special friend that's going to give Goldberg his first loss. And if Goldberg gets past his friend, Hogan's going to give Goldberg a wrestling lesson. Turns out his friend Scott Hall. And he did not give Goldberg his first loss. So then Goldberg beat Hogan. And now he holds the U.S. title and the World Heavyweight title. And I noticed some fans threw trash in the ring when Goldberg won.
Did they?
A little bit, yeah.
Ungrateful bastards.
Mr. Perfect versus Goldberg for the World Heavyweight title. When Mr. Perfect comes out with a Goldberg shirt that says "Who's next?" and he reveals the bottom half of the shirt and it says Goldberg. Checkmate.
Got it.
It's not relevant, but Mr. Perfect's chest was completely saturated with water or oil or both, but his back was bone dry. Goldberg comes out wearing the World Heavyweight title for the first time, stands in the sparklers for a long ass time, also bleeding from his forehead. Apparently goes back to his football roots where before every game he would headbutt a locker. And Goldberg is also 111-0. This was a squash match, pretty much. Goldberg hit a gorilla press slam. Mr. Perfect tried to work on Goldberg's legs. He hit the perfect plex. Of course, Goldberg kicked out. Then commentary tried to make it seem like we haven't seen someone kick out of a perfect plex every fucking pay-per-view since Perfect's been in WCW. Goldberg levels Perfect with a clothesline, spear, jackhammer, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
I don't know why they built it up as much as they did. You know what? I kind of like it. Kind of reminds me of like when Mike Tyson would fight. They'd hype up whoever he was fighting, world title match. And, this is going to be the boxing match of the century. And then the match happens and it's 20 seconds.
Yeah, unfortunately, Perfect didn't stand a chance.
No.
I guess we knew what it was.
Unfortunately. I don't have a problem with Goldberg being a monster the way he is. It's just I wish they would have sacrificed somebody other than Mr. Perfect.
Yeah.
Especially since they've treated him like shit, at least on pay-per-view.
Mismanaging your legends, Mr. Bischoff.
Well, then they have a video package. Really just a montage of Karl Malone and DDP going back and forth with Hogan and Rodman to really bad music. And I've noticed that Karl Malone is really, really overzealous.
That's fair.
Hollywood Hogan and Dennis Rodman, with the Disciple, of course, versus DDP and Karl Malone. And before the match, Buffer was sure to let us know that this match is more important than any title, trophy, or championship belt. So fuck you, Goldberg. DDP and Malone come out. Buffer says they align themselves with no affiliations or organizations. And I'm pretty sure Malone is still playing for the Jazz at this point. So that didn't make any sense to me. And Malone was also dressed exactly like DDP and promised to deliver the mail like never before, according to Buffer. And yeah, Malone was really into this match. He was making faces and staring Hogan down. He had like tough guy face while trying not to laugh. So Malone and Rodman start. Rodman keeps asking Malone to attack him, then running away when he does. And Rodman and Malone lock up. Rodman ends up slithering to the floor. Hogan gets tagged in, has a pose off with Malone, and he gets super pissed off every time Malone participates. And Malone locks Hogan in some sort of hold. Hogan keeps going for the ropes, and Malone just lifts him up back into the middle of the ring. Finally, Malone scoop slams Hogan and acts like he knocked out Ali. DDP and Rodman lock up. Rodman gets shoved to the mat twice. Then they spit on each other. And Rodman hits DDP with his trademark arm drag. They collide into each other, and Rodman ends up on his ass again. Rodman whips DDP in the ropes and starts leapfrogging, barely clearing DDP. Then he chest bumps DDP, and they both just kind of tumble. And Hogan and Malone tag in. Hogan claims Malone pulled his hair, and Rodman attacks Malone from behind while everybody's bitching about Hogan's hair. And Hogan and Rodman start working on Malone. At one point, Rodman holds Malone's arms back while Hogan hits Malone so hard Rodman lands on his ass. I thought that was kind of funny. Like, for being a world champion basketball player, Rodman sure was not athletic at all.
He was the rebound guy.
Did you see those leapfrogs? He can fucking leap for shit. Like, how are you going to be a rebound leader and not know how to jump?
He was more of a go to the ground guy, laying out for the balls.
Well, Malone's finally able to tag DDP in. He starts running wild on Hogan and Rodman. Rodman nails DDP from behind, cutting off his momentum. And then Rodman and Hogan start working over DDP. I think the crowd starts chanting, "Utah sucks." Probably isn't what you want to hear from your main event good guys.
I couldn't make out if it was that or if you both suck. It wasn't good, whatever it was.
Yeah, the crowd was not into this match. So Page starts getting a second win, starts fighting his way to the ropes, despite Rodman's best efforts to stop him. And he finally gets to Malone, but Hogan gets into the ring to distract the refs, so DDP's tag is nullified. And Hogan goes for the leg drop to DDP, but DDP rolls out of the way, and then he gets the tag to Malone. So Malone scoop slams Hogan and Rodman, then clunks their heads together, then hits Hogan with a big boot, signals for a diamond cutter, then tags DDP in so he can do the diamond cutter to Hogan. Rodman tries to break up the pin. Malone hits Rodman with the diamond cutter. And for some reason, Malone tries to cover Rodman. And for some other reason, the ref drops what he's doing to yell at Malone while, DDP and Hogan are still there. Meanwhile, the Disciple hits DDP with a stunner behind the referee's back. And then he rolls Hogan on top of DDP, 1, 2, 3. After the match, Malone hits the Disciple with a diamond cutter. And then he hits the referee with a diamond cutter for no reason. And the NWO celebrate after the match. Hall did a weird little interview or something at the top of the entrance ramp that not only was inaudible, they cut away from it just as Rodman was about to answer him.
Yeah, they were really lingering at the end there.
And that was Bash at the Beach 98. I could have done without that main event, I'll tell you that.
I don't know. It wasn't offensive to me. I was thinking, like, they can do that because they're not doing all the flips and the flops. It's an old school wrestling match. And
well, they had
also,
to stall a lot because they had 2 non-wrestlers in there.
Of everybody, it seems like Rodman was bringing the whole match down.
Oh, he sure was.
I was like, is he even sober?
He was more focused on that damn bandana than putting on a good match.
Yeah, I was like, is he even sober? Because, yeah, he was really focused on keeping his bandana on. Like, every bump he took, he would check that bandana. Every time he walked around, he'd check that bandana.
Mm-hmm.
And he's taking body slams and headlocks. And things stayed on the whole match.
I think there was a point he tagged out just so he could fix it.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Well, the following night on Monday Nitro, the World Cruiserweight Championship was returned to Jericho due to the interference from Dean Malenko. This is due to an infraction of the WCW rulebook stating that if a suspended competitor interferes in a championship match, the title change is null and void.
Seems like that's happened quite often with Jericho.
Yeah, he did his little loopholes. And yeah, that is it for that. Our next WCW pay-per-view is Road Wild 98. The tag is Road Fast, Road Hard. Of course, we're in Sturgis, South Dakota. And our main event is Hollywood Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff being accompanied by Miss Elizabeth and the Disciple versus DDP and Jay Leno. And they're with Kevin Eubanks. Yes.
Oh, God.
Kevin Eubanks is a member of Leno's band.
He's in the match or he's just like manager?
He's like the manager.
Okay.
Isn't it bad enough?
You just said Jay Leno's in the main event, and I'm here questioning why Kevin's there.
Well, before that, we have WrestleMania 32, which took place at the AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Tejas. This was the last WrestleMania to be held before the reintroduction of the brand extension, which introduced another world championship, the WWE Universal Championship. Thus, this was also the last WrestleMania to feature one world championship. This was also the third WrestleMania to be held in the state of Texas after 17 and 25, which were both in Houston. 12 matches were contested at the event. 4 were particularly considered to be the marquee attractions. In the main event, Roman Reigns faced Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. In the other matches, The Undertaker faced Shane McMahon in a Hell in a Cell match. Brock Lesnar faced Dean Ambrose in a no-holds-barred street fight. Charlotte, Becky Lynch, and Sasha Banks had a triple threat match for the inaugural WWE Women's Championship. You'll have to tell us all about that. This replaced the Divas Championship that Charlotte held going into the event, and it was retired during the kickoff show. The event was also notable for having the shortest WrestleMania match ever when The Rock defeated Eric Rowan in an impromptu match. Also, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal included the surprise participation of Shaquille O'Neal. The match was won by NXT's Baron Corbin in his main roster debut. Despite its commercial success, critics gave mixed to negative reviews for WrestleMania 32 and rated it worse than NXT's TakeOver Dallas, which was held 2 days prior. Praise went towards the opening ladder match, Styles versus Jericho, and the Women's Championship match. criticism was focused on the main event, Ambrose versus Lesnar, the Hell in the Cell match, you're goddamn right, and the overall length of the event.
Which is like 4 hours. Wait, I thought the Hell in a Cell match was good.
Undertaker versus Shane McMahon?
Yeah.
Define good.
Well, Shane McMahon's one of those people who is going to fall off of anything. So I guess that would be what I define as good.
I just know at this point, especially at this point, Shane McMahon has no purpose. There's no reason for him to be wrestling the fucking Undertaker in a Hell in a Cell match of all things at WrestleMania. If they're going to do this, this would be like a backlash match.
You're not a Shane fan, that's fair.
There was also what people saw as questionable booking decisions. It was focused on the amount of heel victories outside of the opening match in the main event. The show was voted as the worst major wrestling show of 2016 in the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards. And the readers of WrestleCrap, which chronicles the worst moments in professional wrestling, gave it the Gooker Award for the worst wrestling event of any kind in 2016. The main event title match drew particular criticism and resulted in negative and angry crowd reactions. WrestleMania 32.
Basically, we're not looking forward to it.
Apparently not.
But
at least not on paper. And I got to say, that's pretty accurate. I'm looking at this fucking card. The Styles and Jericho have a match. That might be the only like bright spot, if that tells you anything. Zack Ryder, Kevin Owens, Dolph Ziggler, The Miz, Sami Zayn, Sin Cara, and Stardust in the ladder match. The League of Nations versus Alberto Del Rio, Rusev, and Sheamus with King Barrett versus The New Day. And Brock Lesnar, Ambrose, Charlotte Lynch, and Sasha. Undertaker versus Shane McMahon. The Andre the Giant thing. Rock versus Eric Rowan. And then we have the main event. This is going to be a shitty WrestleMania. I think this is the WrestleMania where Ryback appeared with the pre-show stopper weight belt too, which was the only thing that he did with it was entertaining.
Looks like we got an interesting 2 weeks of retros. We got to go through this, and then we got to go through Jay Leno on a main event.
I don't know. I find that the WCW stuff that's bad is at least entertaining bad. The WWE bad stuff is just bad. Except when you have Hornswoggle rapping. That was kind of funny.
Yeah. And as I always say, if you disagree with anything, let us know in the comments. If you agree with anything, let us know in the comments. On your way out, hit the like button and subscribe button. But on that note, survey says, one more for the good guys.